Today we're learning lesson 2.5, multiplying decimals. Now we multiply decimals almost the exact same way that we multiply whole numbers, just like when we add and subtract decimals, we do that almost the exact same way as we do with whole numbers. We just have to worry about that decimal place, okay? One skill that we really need to know how to do is to identify the number of decimal places in a number, okay? So when we have the number 1 and 2/10, there's one number after that decimal, so there's one decimal place. There's one number that is in a decimal place. Okay. In the number 3 and 456 thousandths, there's 1, 2, 3 numbers after that decimal. So there are 3 decimal places. Okay. Try number 3 on your own. So there would be 1, 2. 2 decimal places. In a whole number such as 4, okay, write it as you would write $4. That decimal goes after that 4. And we would fill in with zeros, which don't change the value of that number. Okay, so that is the same exact, 4.00 is the same exact thing as just 4. Okay. Now to multiply decimals, we do 3 steps. The first thing is just to multiply as usual, even if we just had whole numbers, using that algorithm. Okay, once you multiply using that algorithm, then you can count the number of decimal places there are in the multiplication problem. Okay, and those numbers that are being multiplied, and we'll do that in an example together. Okay, the third step that we're going to do that I forgot to write for you guys, I apologize, is that once you count the number of decimal places that there are in the problem, that's how many decimal places are in the answer. All right, so let's do an example together. We have 3 and 91 hundredths times 6, a whole number. So we're starting off with a pretty simple one. 3.91 times 6. We write it just as if it was 391 times 6. We forget about that decimal place. Then we're going to multiply through using that algorithm as usual. So we have 6 times 1, which is 6. 9 times 6, which is 54. We write that 4, carry that 5. 6 times 3, which is 18, plus 5, 23. All right, our last step is to count, or our next step, sorry, is to count the number of decimal places there are in the multiplication problem. So we look at the two numbers being multiplied. We have 3.91. So there are 2 decimal place values in 3.91. 1, 2. All right, and in that whole number, that decimal comes after that 6, so there is no decimal place in the whole number 6. So we have 2 decimal places in our answer. This answer then becomes 23 and 46 hundredths. Now you can kind of guess and check, or sorry, not guess and check, but check your answer by estimating. So you have 3 times 6, which is 18. 23 is pretty close to 18. For example, if you would have moved that decimal and got 2.346, that doesn't make sense because 3 times 18 is a lot more than 2. Okay, or if you got 234 because you got that decimal back here, 3 times 6 is 18 and 234 does not make sense. Okay, even if you got it way back here and didn't put a decimal place, 3 times 6 is 18, so 2,346, that answer just doesn't make sense. Okay, so you can always check with estimation. Let's do another example. Getting a little harder now, we have 2 decimals. So we have 4 and 8/10 being multiplied by 5 and 2/10. And we write it just as if it was 48 being multiplied by 52. And we just use that algorithm. So we do 8 times 2, 16. 4 times 2, 8. This one is 9. Moving on over to that 5, so we have to write our 0. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. Add them together, we get 6, 9, 4, and 2. Now we have to count how many decimal place values we have in our problem, which is 1 in 4.8 and 1 in 5.2. So we should have 1, 2, in our answer. This answer is going to be 24 and 96 hundredths. All right, again, you can estimate 4 times 5 is 20. 24 makes sense. Next example is going to be an order of operations problem. So here we have an order of operations problem. All right, so we're going to be using PEMDAS. Right. In this order of operations problem, we do not have parentheses, we do not have exponents, but we do have multiplication. So that's what we need to do first. We need to take 1.4 times 5.2, and I want you to pause the video and try this on your own. Okay, and then resume it and check your answer. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. Moving on over to the 5, drop our 0. 5 times 2 is, 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. This gives us 728. We then count how many decimal place values we have in our problem. 1, 2, 1, 2. So we replace this right here with 7.28. Then we are going to just copy everything we haven't done, which is 16.8 minus that. We line that up with the decimals, 16.8 minus 7.28. We fill those empty spaces with zeros. Now you cannot take away 8 from 0, so we have to borrow from this 8, make it a 7 in order to get this to be a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. 7 minus 2 is 5. 6 minus 7 we can't do, so we have to borrow from that 1, make it a 0, make the 6 a 16. 16 minus 7 is 9. So our final answer is 9 and 52 hundredths. All right, this next example is more real-world situation. So you're at the grocery store and you buy 5 tomatoes and they weigh 2.75 pounds. Okay, you hand the cashier a $10 bill and we want to know how much change you're going to receive. Well, this asks us 2 different things. We need to first know how much money we're spending, so we need to first find that total cost. Then the second thing we're going to have to do is find the change. Okay, well, this picture over here helps us knowing how much a pound of tomatoes costs. Well, if we buy 2.75 pounds of tomatoes, we can figure out our cost by knowing how much each pound is. Okay, so I always like to simplify the problem, make it an easier problem so we can know or decide what operation we're going to use. So let's say $1.89 is close to $2. Let's say it's $2 a pound. We buy 1 pound. Well, that's going to be $2. We buy 2 pounds. That's going to be $4. We buy 3 pounds. That's going to be $6. We're multiplying the amount of pounds we buy by the cost. All right. So if we buy 2.75 pounds, we're going to multiply that by $1.89 to see how much we are going to be paying. We take 9 times 5 is 45. 5 times 8 is 40 plus 4, 44. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 4 is 9. Drop that 0 and move over to that 7. I'm going to erase these because it is crowded up here. 7 times 9 is 63. 7 times 8 is 56, plus 6 gives us 56 plus 6 gives us 62. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 6 gives us 13. Now we're moving all the way over to that 2, so we got to put 2 zeros to place hold. 2 times 9, again, sorry, I'm going to erase this, 18. 2 times 8, 16, plus 1 is 17. 2 times 1, 2, plus 1 is 3. 5 plus 0 is 5. 4 plus 3 is 7. 9 plus 2 is 11. Plus 8 is 19. 7 plus 3 is 10. Plus 1 is 11. 3 plus 1 is 4. Plus 1 is 5. Now we have to count how many decimal places we have in our problem. So we have 2 in 1.89, and we have 2 and 2.75. So we have 4 decimal places in our problem, so we need 4 decimal places in our answer. This becomes 5.1975. Now the big thing with money is you're never going to see a dollar amount that looks like this, right? We only have 2 decimal places for money because once we get to 99 cents, we make it another dollar. Okay, so we're going to chop it off after those 2 decimal places, but we need to know how to round it. All right, so we look at the number that's after it. If this number is 4 or less, we keep it the same. If this number is 5 or more, we round it up. So if we have $5.19, this 7 tells us to round up to $5.20. So our total cost is going to be $5.20. So we found the first part. But that's not what the question asks. The question asks how much change we're going to receive from a $10 bill. So if we give that cashier a $10 bill, we want to subtract our cost to see how much change we're going to get. Now, 0 minus 0 is 0. We can't take away 2 from 0, can't borrow from 0, so we have to go all the way over to this 1, make it a 0. That makes this a 10, but we're borrowing from that 10, so it becomes a 9, and then we can make this one over here a 10. Now we can subtract. 10 minus 2, we have 8. Drop down that decimal. 9 minus 5 is 4. Our change and final answer for this problem, $4.80. All right, our last type of multiplication problem is with tax and tip. Okay, now we're talking about like a restaurant bill, or maybe when you go to the Nike store to buy you a new pair of shoes. It's your receipt that you get. Okay, so tax is a percent. So tax can be 8%, 5%, and so on. All right, so that percent gets multiplied by the total amount and then added to that total amount. Okay, same exact idea with tip. So tip is something that you would leave like a waiter or waitress at a restaurant. All right, and that is also a percent. Usually the general tip that people get is 20%. Okay, so tip as a percent gets multiplied and then also added to that total amount. Okay, so up here we have a receipt from a restaurant. You have what your food cost. You have what the tax was, so maybe that was 5% of $43, whatever percent it was, and then you have your total amount that you have to pay, because you have to pay that, what you paid for food, and then that tax. Down here at the bottom on this receipt, they were nice and they just gave you 20% would be $9.12 of that $45.58, so that you wouldn't have to do the math, but not all restaurants do that. All right. Also, gratuity is another fancy word for a tip. Okay, so when it says gratuity, it's talking the same thing. It's like a tip that you're going to give a waiter or waitress. The example that we have, the bill of your family's dinner at Old Chicago is $59.35. There's an 8% sales tax. We want to know what would your total bill be. All right, well, the very first thing we have to do is we can't multiply a percent. We don't know how to do that. Okay, so we have to make that percent a decimal. And we make percents decimals by moving the decimal place, and the decimal place in a whole number such as 8, it would be after it, 2 to the left. And we fill that empty space with a 0. This becomes 0.08. All right. With tax, we multiply that to the total bill and then add it. So we have $59.35 times 0.08. 5 times 8 gives us 40. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 3 more is 28. 8 times 9 is 72. Hold on, I didn't carry something. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 4 more is 28. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 2 is 74. And I don't drop down the decimal because I'm multiplying. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 1 is 41. Now, I made a mistake here somewhere. 59.35. I found my mistake. 8 times, this is a 7, not a 1, so this is 47. Even I make mistakes. And then we do 0 times everything, which is just going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, which doesn't change it when you add it. So we're going to see how many decimal place values are in our problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how many are going to be in our answer. So our our tax is $4.74. 80. Now this 8 is 5 or larger, so it tells us to round up from $4.74 to $4.75. All right, but that's not what the question asked for. The question did not ask what your tax would be. The question asked what your total bill would be. So now we have to add this tax to that total bill. Do that on your own. Check with what I'm doing on the screen. I got a total bill of $64.10. All right. Last part of this note sheet is also to practice a tip problem. Okay, so they want to know how much tip we'd have to leave for this bill if we wanted to leave 20%, which is the common percent that we leave for waiters and waitresses. All right, I already converted that to a decimal, but if I hadn't, you just move that decimal 2 to the left, get 0.20. All right, so same exact idea. We have to multiply that tip, percent, or decimal by the total bill, including tax, and then we would add it if it asked for what that final bill would be, but all it's asking for is that tip. So we don't have to do that extra step over here. Once we do that multiplying, that'll be our answer. All right, so we have $64.10 being multiplied by 20% or 0.20. 0 times 0, 0. Those are all going to be zeros. Okay, so we can move over to that 2 because 0 plus anything is just what we had to begin with. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 6 is 12. We then look how many decimal place values are in my... Oh, one mistake that I did make was when I moved over to that 2, I did not add another 0. I'm all full of mistakes tonight. So I'm going to count how many decimal place values I have. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. That tip, $12.82. Those zeros tell us to keep it at $12.82. That does answer our question because all it asks for how much would the tip be. So a final answer. All right, as always, you are able to go back and rewind to any parts of the videos that you need clarification on. You can ask questions for me. You can write questions over on the side of your screen, or not your screen, your paper, and then summarize what we learned today. One thing that I would include in that summary for today is definitely those 3 steps that we use when we are multiplying decimals that we learned about on that front page of the note sheet.